I'm just trying to keep deals together for your deals so you guys can look good. So with all that said, I'm going to move into what's going on here today. Speaking of clients, I heard something on the call yesterday that I think is going to be helpful. And I had to reflect back on, I don't know if any of you have touched loan modifications, but in a loan modification, your client, the person, has to handwrite a hardship letter. They don't even want it typed. The banks want a handwritten hardship letter. So all of a sudden I started thinking, how many of you have put together, when you're working with a buyer, put together a letter for the offer telling about your client, why they want? Has everybody done that? Okay, why, what makes them different? You know what will be more impactful to that seller is to get your buyer, you know, if they're capable, and I think everybody's capable, they're all, if they can't write a letter, what are they doing buying a house? But have them write a letter to the offer, with that offer. It's just, why do I want this house? Here's what my family is. Here's where I come from. Here's my background. My little kids love your backyard. Oh my God, you know, whatever, the neighborhood, the schools, whatever it is, have your buyer write that letter. And it's been working so well with some of the other loan officers. And again, I want to bring you back to that loan modification. They have them write that hardship letter, handwrite it, okay? Two things that I want to tell you, and I sent this out last Friday. The FHA has extended, they've given us one more month. It was supposed to end where the condominiums and townhouses, you know how they aren't going to support, HUD is not going to support the spot check letter. Well, they're going to give us another whole month. So if we've got buyers working with condos, we've got now through October to close. One other thing that I'm seeing, and we're going to have to work together on this just to help the transaction close faster. It used to be, and you guys all know this, in the very end at the closing table, we could quickly get together a hazard insurance policy for our buyers. It would be a prior to funding condition. Now most of the lenders that I'm seeing is making it a prior to doc condition. They want to make sure they want all, I'm seeing more and more that they want all those conditions right up front. So they want the hazard insurance policy. So just as a reminder, if you're working with buyers, just right at the get-go, I would say to remind them, now start looking for your hazard insurance, because before we go to the title company, you need that policy in place instead of it being in the end. Okay? Go ahead.
Thank you.
No.
Come on, Greg, dance. I'll dance with you.
I know you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Greg Bruno. I'm Joyce's.
And just so you know, Greg, we love you too, man.
I was really feeling like the redhead.
No, it's okay. We love you. I'm Joyce. But we especially love this week.
Yeah.
History. That's what we really
I just skipped ahead to that.
Just go.
I'm Joyce's half-retarded younger brother. For those of you that don't know who I am.
Just half?
Yeah.
Just half. I'm working
he's
hard.
being positive.
I'm working hard, Bert, to get the 3/4 retarded going. But, anyway, there's a little bit of information as it pertains to yield spread premium. And for those of you that forgot that section of your real estate courses, what that means is any time that either Joyce or I put together a loan, sometimes you'll have a borrower that has limited funds to close. So what we will do is we'll increase the interest rate and get paid through the bank, and then we won't charge any points or fees or actually even help you with the non-recurring or recurring closing costs to help the transaction happen. Now that's heavily being scrutinized as we speak. So there's a possibility that they might do away with yield spread premium, which is going to be a really big loss for the real estate community, because once again, if you have a borrower that has limited funds to close, we're not in a position to where we can go ahead and say, heck, we're getting a decent margin on the deal, we'll kick in some money to cover the non-recurring and recurring closing costs. So we're definitely going to need your support in that regard. We also have some other issues that are happening from HVCC that I was absolutely aggravated by yesterday. There's a middle layer management piece for HVCC, that's the Home Valuation Code of Conduct. That means neither Joyce nor I can speak directly to an appraiser. We actually have to communicate with a middle layer. Now, I have just been informed that neither one of us can talk to the management company for the appraisals. So that's, once again, another ridiculous step that we have to go through. somebody that's not involved with the mortgage selling, which Joyce and I are disallowed to contacting the mortgage, that management layer. So what that means to you guys is please partner with us. It is taking us about 14 days for the appraisal contingency because there's a couple of things that have to happen once the appraisal comes through. We can get copies early, but it has to get approved by the management company of the appraisals. Then it has to be approved through the underwriters. So once we get a copy of the report, it does have to follow this procedure in order for it to go through. And we're also in a situation to where we are running into problems with properties appraising. So that's a very real problem. So only if you absolutely have to get aggressive, talk to either one of us, because the last thing we want to do is come up to you when the contingencies are supposed to be released and say, guys, we need more time. So we appreciate your partnership in that regard. So a couple of other things that are going on is, which I think you guys are going to be thrilled about, is Timothy Geithner, who's the Treasury Secretary, had just been discussing the $8,000 tax credit, because he is beginning to see that there's a direct correlation with the economy improving as a result of the credit. So there is a possibility / likelihood that that is going to continue through next year. So be on the lookout for that. So that's great news. There's also a bit of a crackdown on the loan modification companies. There were also a lot of companies that had rolled out as a result of the borrowers that were in turmoil. So right now there's a focal point on companies that are not providing a service but collecting money. So that's actually going on as we speak. Last week I spoke about the mortgage-backed securities being acquired by the federal government. There still is money allocated for that, and there is a likelihood that that will happen in our future. What does that mean? Whenever the government invests in mortgage-backed securities, it drives the interest rates down. That had actually happened about 4 times since last November. So stay tuned for that. When that happens, we get an immediate bump to interest rates, but it is not long-standing. Typically, it's about a week and a half. Just gives you a very minute opportunity to lock something in. Right, Manju? Just a brief opportunity to lock something in. So last but not least, our favorite part of the day. And this is This Week in History. In 1862, President Lincoln drafted his first component of the Emancipation Proclamation. So that actually rolled out today, and then within 6 months, it freed the slaves, which was great news. In 1969, Willie Mays from the Giants hit 600 home runs, and it's actually rather ironic. His godson, Barry Bonds, is actually being tried, and if he does prevail with his trial, he will return to baseball, probably as a designated hitter sometime in Southern California, or somewhere in Southern California. And in 1975, few people know this, but President Gerald Ford had 2 assassination attempts on his life. And in 1975, it actually happened for the 2nd time. It was actually a woman by the name of Sarah Jane Moore, who actually drew out her weapon. And just as she drew it out, Oliver Sipp ran over, grabbed the gun. She fired 2 shots that missed Gerald Ford, and just narrowly, escaping with his life that day. And then 3 weeks prior to that, one of Charlie Manson's followers had attempted to do the same in Sacramento. And that's it. Thanks so much, guys.
Great. Appreciate it.